Hello, my YDA candidates cohort. So glad to be with you all here. We are going to dive into the credential part of the YDA and briefly talk about the certificate as well. I am going to also kind of like cover the landing page. I know we don't often look at the landing page, but just very briefly, the reason I just want to reference this really quickly is because it talks about, why should I even get the certificate or the credential? I know sometimes that is a question. I've had a few emails this week from folks who said, my director suggests I get it, just wanted to know the why. And so it's important to look at those reasons. It's important to understand the need to professionalize yourself in the out of school time field. And I believe that looking at the landing page and even going to the essential documents where it lists the candidate information packet at the very top of the list of links here will also give you some input on the why. I would also like to reference the passport to a career in youth development. I think that could also give you a lot of information as to the importance of receiving the certificate or the credential. As you know, they are a little different in the sense the certificate is a program where they're looking at you to upload or to have 40 hours of training. And we're looking back 3 years for that. So within the past 3 years, 40 hours of documented training of working with youth and out of school time. And out of school time is before, after, and during the summer learning. And then also to have completed 240 hours of work volunteer experience within the past 3 years as well. It is free to register, as you all know, but it is $35 for the certificate. You get a dashboard just like the credential candidate, and you receive assistance from the MASP team along with this process as well. There is another, as I mentioned, the passport. This is clickable for you all if you want to go through it and have ease of access without having to go through all the links. If you want to take a look at the passport to professional development, you can do that here, but just by clicking on this front cover of our document here. And for the credential program, which we will cover mostly on this time together, that is 120 hours of documented training within the past 5 years. That looks like training that you've completed with your out of school time organizations. And it also looks like going back with your college credits from 5 years back as well. Now with that, with the college transcripts, once they're provided to me, along with my registry log and any other trainings that you've taken, I do a crosswalk of that information with the 10 core competency areas to make sure that there are no gaps. And if there are any training gaps, then I will provide you with suggested trainings for you all to take. And you are always free to search for any trainings that you may want to search for on your own. You may have some local trainings or some state trainings or out-of-state trainings that you may want to go to that could fit those 10 core competency areas. So also for this one, there's a little bit more hours recommended here. The requirement is 480 hours of work and volunteer experience. And for that work experience, you can pull from anything that you've done out of school time. For the volunteer experience, the same. Anything that you've done, it could be from your time teaching Sunday school and Sunday morning, or teaching ballet to young people after school. With that, we would just need a sign off from whomever, or if you were the actual facilitator of that, just what your syllabus may have looked like. It is free to register for this as well, as you all know, but there is a cost of $299. If you are working in a licensed facility, a licensed program, then the Teach Scholarship could possibly benefit you, where you could apply for the Teach Scholarship. They do have their own list of criteria on their website. I would encourage you to go to the link here or the QR code and to find out what the criteria is. But there is a possibility for that $299 to be covered through the Teach Scholarship. I also mentioned once again the essential documents. I strongly suggest and recommend that you just download all of these training documents here. These important documents, they're going to be essential as you move throughout this process, especially the credential process, because you're going to need a great majority of these. I would say that I have double monitors in my office where I'm able to pull up my any of these documents or two of them at a time, along with my YDA portal to kind of like navigate through. If you don't have that, then I would strongly suggest and recommend that you use split screen. And if you ever need to know how to do that when we come together at our next meeting or cohort meeting, please feel free to ask me how I split my screen, and I will show you all how to make that happen. But you're going to need that as you navigate through the most standards of quality. When you do the demonstrations of the core competencies and when you do the code of ethics, you're really going to need a split screen. I recommend it unless you are big on hard copies and you want to print them out, then that is also a definite option as well. So let's dive in. Every person that has registered, I do believe all of you have registered and applied at this point. And if you have, then you will have a dashboard that looks like this. So this is the common dashboard for the MyYDA portal. You will also have your name, as you see my name listed on the right side here. If your name is not on your dashboard, then there's something that was missed in either the registration or the application process. And if that is the case, please feel free to email me. I will provide my email address toward the end of this, where you can email me and say, hey, I don't have my name on my dashboard, and I can go and do some back end checks to find out why that is the case. In our very first time together, we talked about the self-assessment action plan, and I gave you guys about maybe 2 weeks, maybe a little longer to get that completed. Right now, I'm going to say if you are still working on this action plan, just to continue working on it until you get to submission. What this does, though, is it gives you the option to create 2 goals. Goals on how you would like to professionalize yourself in the out-of-school time field and sector. And so in these goals, it's all about you. You are just answering these questions right here. You're putting in this information. You don't need to download a document to get these done. It's all about you. And so every time you enter the information in, I would strongly suggest that you do save so that you don't lose any of the information. Now, you may come back to this as you're going through and reference any of this information where you may see gaps in professional development or trainings and things of that nature. So please make sure that you are answering to these the very first thing, or as I said, kind of like work on it throughout. Going back to our dashboard, the training documentation. This part right here is one that we have been heavily working on together. And when I say heavily working on, I mean where you have provided me with my registry log, training documentations, or reports from the registry. If you are familiar with that, that is a registry that's provided to Michigan. We call the My Registry. It's a database that holds all of your trainings where you can go and search for trainings and then have those trainings that you completed put into a training log for you or report for you. It follows you through any career that you have in the out of school time field. So I always recommend that you use your personal email address to create a My Registry account. So with that report that you're providing to me and any training documentation that you may have from your college experience, like your transcripts, when you provide those to me, then what I provide back in return is a spreadsheet of the information showing you how that those training hours fit into the 10 core competency areas, which I will show you that in just a second here. On this dashboard, though, I want to highlight something, and it came out of one of our cohort meetings where you'll notice that in the training documentation here, that it lists 40 hours. And then for the credential, it lists 120 hours. Well, this system is only built to recognize the 40 and the 120 hours, right? So you'll see for my certificate, I am 6440. And it begins to filter in gray over here into my credential. So it filters over, but my certificate of 40 hours is complete. It's only recognizing that 40 hours of training is complete. So you're going to have to be very diligent to see if there is a minimum of 10 hours. And we can work on getting you more hours, but at least a minimum of 10 hours per the 10 content areas in the actual portal itself, because the system is only looking for a magical number of 40 and 120. We're looking to get that fixed, however, in our new portal, talking with our developer, where it will give you a ping if you've not met enough hours in the actual training content area. And let me show you what I mean by training content area. So you'll see mine already pretty much getting completed here. But when you go to click on the green button add, and I'm going to go back so you'll see where I went. So training documentation, I clicked on the manage button right there. Now I'm clicking on the green add button. So I click this drop down where it says training content area. Here I have the 10 core competency areas listed out. Now, if you are providing the training log from the My Registry, what they do not do is list out the content areas by numbers here. They just give you the name. They give you the actual description, right? So it says child, youth, growth, and development, so on and so forth is what it lists out. But that's fine. That's why we have the content area number listed along with our descriptor. So what you would need for the actual certificate in this area would be a minimum of 2 hours per 10, and for the credential, a minimum of 10 training hours per the 10 content areas. But once again, on that dashboard, it's looking for just 40. So I've had people who've submitted their hours to me, and I've looked through their portal, should I say, and they've had maybe 20 hours in one and 20 hours in 8, and it met 40 hours, and they thought they were completed. I want you guys to pay very close attention to the essential documents, to the candidate information packet, where it very specifically mentions in there the need to have a minimum of 2 hours per content area for the certificate and a minimum of 10 per the 10 content areas for the credential. So it's important that you're looking at each one of them. So going back to the training documentations, clicking on the manage button here, that's grayed out to the right, and I'm clicking on the green add button here. I'm going to drop down again my 10 core content areas. And once you receive that Excel spreadsheet back from me that lists out where your trainings fit, then you can go ahead and choose either one of these. Put the title here, the organization name, or instructor if you know it. If not, organization name as far as Weichert or U for Youth or Michigan After School Partnership or MyLeap, wherever you're receiving your training from, Discover You, wherever it may be, you would put it here, the date that you completed it, and then the training hours would go there, right? And then you would always save. Okay? Do not forget to do that. So it is important that you know your training. Now, one good thing about the registry is that it already lists out for you. It's so easy. It lists out for you the content areas itself. The only time that it does not is when you are doing your trainings, your college transcripts. So it does not do that for you, of course, right? But there is a document under the essential documents that I feel could assist you if you didn't want to wait on me because I'm reviewing someone else's or doing a plethora of other things. If you didn't want to wait on me and you're like, I have my college transcripts, how do I align them? Well, let me put your eyes on a document that I believe could prove to be most beneficial. And it is called the 10 Core Knowledge Content Areas. It's further toward the bottom of the link, right before right above the Your Passport to a Career and Youth Development. So if you click on the 10 core knowledge content areas, then you will be able to get a document that lists out those content areas, what those content areas are, what they're looking for, what it all entails, and you can choose through your college transcripts the ones that apply. Now, I do want to be transparent with you that if you took a class in geography or accounting, if it wasn't specifically accounting for youth or whatever, teaching accounting to young people, more than likely that may not apply. But if you say, Sonia, I think it can, then feel free to email me at the address that I'm going to provide to you guys toward the end of this, and we can have a one-on-one. And I am willing to go and we can look at the verbiage of your syllabus and all your course descriptions, right? And figure it all out. Willing to do that 100%. So once again, going back to the training documentation, you can either use your training log, because from the registry, because like I said, it already lists out, because that's basically what I did here is I just was like, oh, this is my training log from the registry, split my screen, copy and paste, right into this database right here. But if you have an Excel spreadsheet from me, you can just copy and paste that right into your training documentation. Now, once again, training documentation is ongoing. Do not stress. Do not say, oh my gosh, I can't move on until I finish this area. That is not accurate. You do not have to finish the training documentation. You can go to another area of this dashboard and complete it. For example, you can go to the work and volunteer experience. If you say, hey, I know I have my hours, go ahead and enter them in. I've done so. When you go in and click the green add button, put your organization, all that good stuff as far as location, the name of your supervisor at the time or currently, and then your supervisor's phone number, if you still know it or whatever, when you started, when you ended, if you're no longer working for the organization, when you ended, if you're currently working, I think there's a way to put it in where you're currently working there, average hours per week, the number of weeks, and it totals it for you. Okay, make sure to hit save. So you can have more than one of these, because when you hit save, then you're able to add in as many organizations that apply. Same thing for work, volunteer experience. You can always, in this same area, I know it says add the work experience, but this is the same place where you would add your volunteer experience. Okay, so you provide that same information. Same area. So going back to the dashboard again, I'm skipping over program observations right now. There are 3 hours of that needed, but that's something that has to be structured with your program or project director for you to have that time off your site, because you cannot observe your own site. You would need to observe another site. So that's something that has to be scheduled out. I know that we have until June, so we may start working on that early March, talking with your program director, project director on what that could look like. Now, it doesn't have to be 3 hours total done at that site. You can split your time in between that site as long as it's 3 hours, and doesn't have to be the same site. You can do an hour at one place, an hour at another, as long as it totals 3 hours. But I want you to know, for your help, there is a program observation template that you can make use of. That will be of assistance to you, that when you go out to the site, you can write your things there or type it up on your laptop, so that when you get back to your portal, you can just begin to add that information in and just copy right on over. Or if you want, take your laptop with you, open it up, come on right here, click on add, and type it right in here while you're observing. It's up to you. I'm a little different. Like when I do my PQA observations, I like to use sticky notes on the different areas. And then I transfer it over into my scores reporter. So that's kind of how I did mine. I didn't always directly type into certain things. But if that's how you want to do it, you have options to use this template, which I would probably suggest you use it, just so that, you can definitely, type in there, make any edits or tweaks or whatever, and then just copy it and paste it right into that area. But that's something that has to be built out. So that's kind of why I'm skipping that just a little bit. Now, the activity plans. This is where the majority of you from Sparks, we've had our conversations about them already. But this is where those that are doing the certificate would stop. They would end right at the work and volunteer experience. So they would need to do self-assessment action plan, the training documentation of 40 hours, a minimum of 2 per content area, program observation of 3 hours, put in their work volunteer experience, upload their driver's license, bloodborne pathogen training, CPR first aid training, and pay the $35. They are not expected to take a test or anything like that. The credential folks go a little bit more deeper. You do the self-assessment checklist, the training documentation of 120 hours, program observations, 3 hours, work volunteer experience of 40 hours or more. Then you go on to the activity plans, which are lesson plans, code of ethics, scenarios, program management, resources, application of most standards of quality, demonstration of core knowledge, skills, and competencies. You make a payment of $299. But if you're going to get the scholarship because you work in a licensed organization, you would take a screenshot of your dashboard where it is all green all the way down from self-assessment all the way down to demonstration of core knowledge and skills and competencies. As long as that green complete is on there, then you can take a screenshot, send that over to Teach. There is an email for them. If you've clicked on that QR code or that link, or you can email us, the email address I will provide later, and you will let us know, hey, I have my dashboard all greened out and I'm ready to apply for this scholarship. Can you assist? And I will connect you with the right person to assist you on that matter. So that is how you would get that payment done. Once that is paid, a test will be released. Now, either you can get the scholarship, or if your organization says we'll do that, then we'll find a way for reimbursement if that's possible. But if your org says, hey, we're going to do it and they pay for it, it releases a test. So I want you to be aware of that. It releases a test, okay? It is a multiple choice, 50 multiple choice questions. So if you do not pass the assessment, you may retake it once at no charge. If you are unsuccessful at a second time of that, then you could take it one more time, but there is a $30 fee assessed for that. If after that, you do not pass it, you need to email the email address I'm going to provide, and we can work out how to successfully assist you. But once that's done, your test is taken, you're going to do just like the certificate folks, upload your driver's ID, your bloodborne pathogens, and CPR. They have to be current as far as licensing. So 2 years for CPR, right? Cannot be... It has to be up to date. It has to be current and active. Bloodborne pathogen, I'll take around 3 years back, right? But if you need to renew it, it is free of charge to you on Michigan Virtual. You can actually go to Michigan Virtual, take the bloodborne pathogens training at no cost to you, and it goes right into your training log on the registry, which I absolutely love that about Michigan Virtual. And so once all that's done, you submit your application, and then like the certificate person, you get a reviewer. So the only thing that the certificate person does not receive is an external assessor. They do not need to be observed by someone from MASP or MyLeap or anyone that has an external assessor capabilities to go out and do that. Okay. They would only need to observe. They do not need to be observed. Okay. And so with the credential person, you need to observe a program, but then you also need to be observed by an external assessor for about 45 minutes. And you can choose a lesson. It's in your ballpark. It's in your control. We're not asking you to do a lesson that we're going to provide. You tell us this is what we're going to do. We're just coming to look. And one thing I want you to know also is what we're coming to look for. So I want to direct you to, I do believe I saw it on here earlier, or maybe I was looking at another section of, I think I was. So I'm going to take you there because I'm also a coach in the system. And so we have our own documents, right, as coaches. And if you're coaching your staff, like if you're reaching back, if you're like, this is really great, if you're reaching back, I can make you a coach in the system. Just let me know at our next cohort meeting if you are coaching your staff, and you will get access to all of this information that is not currently in your essential documents. For example, you will get access to the Youth for Youth training document. You would get access to the CTE coach teacher guide, which proves to be way beneficial for our CTE students. And then you would also get the SELPQA fillable form. So the SELPQA is what we're using when we come out to assess you. So if you are coaching and you want to get a little bit more information about how to further assist your staff, let me know and I'll make you a coach in the system. Okay, so let's go back to the dashboard again, and talk about, let's see. We talked about program observation. We talked about what you need as a credential candidate and how you're going to be tested and all that good stuff about submitting. I want to go next to the activity plans. I'm going to show you guys some good examples of the activity plans. So I call them lesson plans. Activity plans, lesson plans. It's the same. So in here, you need to develop 4 detailed, pay attention to the word detailed, activity plans by completing a MyYDA activity plan form for each activity. Choose a different activity type for each plan from the following: creative performing arts, field trip, food nutrition, literature, science, technology, engineering, and math, as we know it as STEM, or service learning. You write the name of the activity here. You select the type of activity through the drop down, the number of students, the age level, the length, all of this. This is a created lesson plan that is in the actual system. Cost for this activity. I mentioned during one of our actual times together that when we talk about cost, we're getting you to think like a program and director and a project director. It is important that you understand that there is a site budget and how to maintain those funds and how to make good use of those funds. And I know that it's limited funds. So we need to really start thinking about creative ways to do activities. I'm going to show you, I have permission to show this to you from this particular person who completed their credential some time ago. And I can only show you what I have been given permission to show. I can't go through the system and just pick any candidate. That's not ethical. So I have permission to share. So I'm going to go to the activity plan section and show you that this person chose, he did his 4, and he chose a field trip. Now, most often with field trips, your cost is going to really come from transportation, or if you have to provide lunch for your students out when they're out of the school building because they didn't get lunch for that day, then your costs may come in that way, right? But if you have really great relationships with people in your community and across the state, where they say, for example, I would take my students to the Detroit Institute of Arts all the time. They provided a bus for me, so I didn't have to spend any money on transportation, and it was a really nice bus. They provided a bus for me. They also have educational consultants and assistants at the DIA where they would walk our kids through a tour and explain to them what the mummy's life was like, or explain what this painter was thinking. I mean, it's such a great interactive experience. And so if you can find that in your community where you can not eat up the cost of your budget on things like this, on lesson planning and activities for your students, enrichments, then I would say build those relationships. So this is an example of that, where this person, this organization actually has a relationship with a dental school through University of Detroit, and they provided transportation, they provided materials. The cost came in with food because they didn't provide the food. But it was noted here, in here, when it said detailed, they detailed the materials. They detailed what the students would do. These are things that are being asked of you in this activity plan, this lesson plan. The objective. What are the students going to learn? What will staff do? Now, if you notice, the objective and what students will do is the same. Now, when I was in classrooms teaching, we had to use students will be able to, with SWAB it is what we called it. This program used the learner will. But the students will be able to, and learner will, which is objective, and what will students do, are the same. Copy and paste it. It's the same. Nothing changed. No verbiage changed there. You can copy and paste, and that's fine. What will staff do? It's important to note what staff will be doing. If you have an issue with staff that are on their phone, write it out in the lesson plan. Have them hold it in their hand like a script as they're in there. So they'll look down and I should be doing this. If it's a rotation, if it's watching the kids, if it's, I'm with this group and this is what I need to do, then what will staff be doing? It's important to write that down. When I review your information or anyone's information, I'm looking to see the number of students. I've mentioned that in our cohort time together. I'm looking at the number of staff. Is the ratio intact? I'm looking at the number of students in comparison to the materials. Will there be enough? I would rather you have enough than not enough, because now that means you have to go shopping in your program while you're instructing or should be instructing. So now you're taking time away from the lesson, the activity. And you're taking away from what students should be able to do by the end of this activity if you have to go shopping. So I'm looking at all of this, and it looks like there's going to be a nice little surplus of stuff of things left over. Another thing we want to start adding in is how to be inclusive and how to make your program accessible to every person, every student. And so the adaptations required, that's in here. It's just a section in here. We just want to see your thoughts. How would you handle that if you had to adapt this lesson in any way? We just want you to start thinking and being creative. Materials costs and all things cost related, once again, is you thinking about your budget, how to be creative with those funds, right? Even if you said there's no materials cost because I had a surplus, or another one of our sites, I was able to borrow their kit or whatever, right? So that's a field trip. I'm not going to go through all of these for the sake of time, but this one is because this is a STEM program. They chose STEM here. Remember, this is a drop-down option. The activity type is a drop-down option for you. And then you put down the number of students. Once again, you know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the number of staff for ratio. This is a high school program. I know that because of the age level, right? I'm looking at the objective. I'm looking at what staff's going to be doing a lot. Staff, they don't have time to sit down. They don't have time to be on their phone. It's very detailed what staff is going to be doing. And then the materials needed. Is that going to match the number of students that's going to be in this activity? It's 40 of them. So I'm looking at things of that nature. How did you adapt it? And then I'm looking at this cost here. I'm like, okay, wow, okay. In my head as a program director, I'm like, okay, with this cost, that's a cost that may need to be approved. What is my budget like? That That's a conversation that I may need to have with my program director as a site coordinator on that cost. And being that this is a STEM program, it probably wouldn't be any pushback, but the conversation is needed, right? All right, so that's 4 of those that you would need to do. 4 of them, okay? And it broke down to you what those 4 areas are going to look like. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard. So once again, you'll see the 4 areas that you can choose from. Those areas, I'm sorry. Creative performing arts, field trip, food, nutrition, literature, science, technology, engineering, math, and service learning. So that's 6. And service learning could be community service, which I strongly recommend programs to start working on and doing. And so that is what the activity lesson plans look like. That was a good example. Okay. Then moving into the actual code of ethics scenarios. So for this section right here, you're going to need either the printout of the code of ethics scenarios, the code of ethics itself, which is right here in the middle of the link, the National After School Association Code of Ethics. This credential is heavily aligned with the National After School Association's 10 core competencies. The Code of Ethics the Code of Ethics codes is what you're going to need for these scenarios. There are 4 given scenarios, okay? And what you need to do is have that document either printed out or a split screen once again, or on another monitor what that actual document is, so that when you come to these scenarios, you can pick out the right codes. So I'm going to show you another example from the person I've received permission to use their source. Using the National NAA Code of Ethics, list at least 3, not at least, but list 3 of the relevant sections and the numbers of the principles that provide guidance for each of the following scenarios. So this first scenario here, you have A, B, C, D, as I said, 4 of them. You need to choose which section applies. Now, I'm going to show you what they're just giving you examples here. Like someone, you could choose 1.5, 2.9, 6.3. They don't all have to be in the same section. You can look throughout that document and find whatever fits this scenario, how you're going to answer it. And then they want you to speak to it. Okay. So let me get the example for you to show you what it looks like for the Code of Ethics scenarios. Here we are. So as you can see, it's the 4. Scenarios are listed as you begin to enter into it. You go to your Manage button, you click on it, the scenarios pop up, right? These are just the responses that this person gave. Here we are. They chose 1.7, 1.8, 2.4, 2.7, and 2.8. Looking throughout that document, that's what they chose. Why did they choose it? They gave their reason. Here I have a responsibility to the child first and foremost. Wasn't nothing too in-depth. Straight to the point. The next one, another example, chose 1.8, 2.1, 2.5, 2.7, 3.11, and 3.12. And it's okay if 2.7 fits in 2.7 in part A and it fits again in part B or where else. It's fine as long as it applies to that scenario. The person says, here I have a responsibility to the child and the family. Since this incident did not occur during after-school programming and there was no mention of an immediate threat of harm to the child, I would recommend that the teacher notify the parent or the school counselor for assistance. That was their answer to that scenario. Now, everyone's answer is going to be different. But what I'm looking for is, did you look throughout that document and choose the right codes? That's what I'm looking for most often, is did you choose the right codes? Were you looking in that document correctly? And once again, the document that you're looking for is going to be in your essential documents on your dashboard, and it's going to be called the National Association Code of Ethics. Make use of that one. Okay? Now, moving deeper into program management. Now, this one is three different things, okay? Sample policies, student engagement, family engagement. Sample policies, they're asking you to submit 2 sample policies for each topic listed below: enrollment, attendance, health and safety, administration and handling of medications, emergency contingency plans, behavior management. I want to go back. Enrollment, including admission and withdrawal. How do you withdraw a student? How do you admit a student? Attendance, including sign in, sign out procedures. Please do not say for enrollment, first come, first serve. That is not a policy. Health and safety, administration and handling of medications, emergency contingency plans. That's a natural disaster, crisis management, accident, injury. Behavior management, conflict resolution, discipline, and guidance. Now, I have to say this because someone went to another state and I said, "Oh, let's try to stay in Michigan." The examples that she pulled were absolutely beautiful. Oh my God, the policies were amazing. And I have to retract that. If you find a policy in another state that works, that fits this, that has some inclusion in there, some diversity, and is meeting all of these criteria that they're asking you to get, use it. So my apologies. Go across the state. I understand sometimes Michigan is limited. It is. We're working on Michigan. We love Michigan, but we're working on some things around that licensing and all that policy stuff, right? We are aware of that. So if there's another state that's doing this beautifully and well, please use it. I don't want you guys to be stressed. I don't want stressors in your life. We have a lot to do in out of school time, and we understand that. And so we want you guys to go ahead and find policies across states if that fits this example of including admission and withdrawal in the enrollment, including sign-in and sign-out procedures and attendance, the emergency contingency plans, the natural disaster, as we know, is tornado, if you have a fire, crisis management, fire, and all that other stuff, right? What does it look like? So 2 examples. Once you find them, you don't have to write to them. Just copy and paste them right into the area. You do not have to write to them. You're going to copy and paste as long as you can tell me where you got it from, okay? If you're saying it came from another state, I would appreciate that for fairness and just for information for us. Student engagement. So we know the high quality programs provide youth with multiple opportunities to be involved in decision making, planning, management, evaluation, implementation, and improvement of the program. Describe below strategies for involving youth students in the planning, and involving them in implementation, involving them in evaluation of the program. And you're going to provide written examples for one of these strategies. I'm going to go ahead and give you an example. So let's find out what that looks like or could look like. Just an example. Okay. Program management. We're going to go and look at student engagement. First, let's look at some of the policies that was chosen here. Boy Scouts of America was one of the organizations where this person actually works. And if that's fine, if where you work, they have great policy, pull it. Carmanos was another one. We're talking about those that serve youth. Carmanos has a really great out-of-school time program for youth if you were not aware of that. You can use child care centers if that is also something that you want to look at. Some of them have really great policies. Student engagement, let's get there. All right. So strategy planning, student engagement. So at the beginning of each school year, the role of student co-facilitator is established. So they're choosing a student to be a co-facilitator, choosing a different student every day, allowing students to help plan, develop, and teach all club activities, lesson planning, supply list videos, etc. In a similar fashion, students are allowed to vote on and help prepare for upcoming club activities, field trips, etc., with the purpose of connecting their club activity of choice to the Michigan Department of Education MDE standards. So this is how they are involving students. That's the planning. This is the implementation. I'm just going to scroll through. I'm not going to read these, just for you to have as reference. This is just good examples. And then to provide a written example of one of the strategies, just one of them. You can choose evaluation, you can choose implementation, you can choose planning, just one of them. And then moving into family engagement, you're also doing the same. How do you involve family in the decision making, the process of implementation, evaluating? How do you involve your families? So planning, implementation, evaluation. And then here, you're going to actually upload a sample family communication. How you communicate with your family could be a flyer. So upload is download on my end because it's already been uploaded. But on your end, you're going to be able to choose the file, right? So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So here for family engagement, once again, I want to just show you that you're able to choose a file from wherever you've saved it and upload that sample communication, letter or flyer that you would, distribute to your families detailing an activity or event for your program. Okay. And so then moving a little bit more, and please keep in mind, this is informational right now. We are still going to meet at our cohorts and still break each one of these down. But this is just for reference so you'll know what's coming up, what's happening, what it's about, my suggestions on how to get some of this done that will take that weight off of you. So we talked about code of ethics. We talked about program management. Let's talk about the resources, shall we? So for the resources, we're looking at a list of titles and authors and publishers of at least 4 articles or books in each of the following 3 categories. Okay, there are 3 of them. They are cultural, linguistic, and or gender identity. So you're providing 4 sources there. Understanding diverse needs, you're providing 4 sources there. And then life experiences, you're providing 4 sources there. My recommendation and suggestion is please do not put the same author and title in the same section. Now, it may apply elsewhere, but don't do it in the same section. I've had to ask people not to do that. So you're finding books and articles and journal articles. Google Scholar is going to be your friend on this one. The library, if you still visit those, books in your program that you already have, books that you may have at home with your children or your grandchildren or whatever you guys have as a resource that speaks to cultural, linguistic, or gender identity with children. You can use any age level. If you want to stick with the age level that you work with, I would say that would be great, because then that way it would give you a great resource. But if you can't, then I understand. But let's try to do that. So pick your subject, your title, your author, publisher. And I know this is more often it's broken down for book to me, an article. But if you want to say a website, you can go ahead and do that as well. You can put down the publisher will be the website. Sometimes articles do allow a publisher to be listed. Sometimes they do not. But if your publisher is a website, if you found it on a website, just please put that website link in there. That would be great. So we're looking for life experiences, and it kind of breaks it down under the life experiences that we're looking for, for you guys to find things around adoption, birth, blended families, death, divorce, economic hardship, homelessness, military deployment, separation. I recall when one time we were reading books around, mommy and daddy, helps me get ready for bed, or one of the kids like, well, I don't have a mommy and daddy, I have a mommy and mommy. And I remember when books started changing to that, right? Mommy and mommy, or daddy and daddy. And so, I thought that was just so inclusive, and that's real life for some of our young children. And so look for things around life experiences, understanding disabilities or special needs. We need to understand bringing in inclusivity into our programs. And so these are kind of like why we want you guys to start thinking about the different resources, right? But not to make it too hard on you, I want you guys to really consider, I want you to really consider Google Scholar, and then to look in your community, like what are some of the offerings in the community that you may have. Child care referrals, the agencies, please include the email and the website, counseling, food, housing, legal, medical and dental, special needs development. This is all a search on Google. Or if you have a really awesome counselor, I would have to say that I had an amazing counselor when I worked in Macomb County at my site. Amazing counselor that I could go and she would give me a list. This is what I give my students. And you may have that same type of counselor relationship where they could say, this is what I provide to my families, child care referrals, counseling agencies, food banks, housing. Like, where do I go if my water is about to be cut off or I need a housing waiver? How do I deal with legal issues if there's something going on in my family? What's the legal in my community? Medical and dental. My kid needs his teeth fixed. Is there a mobile dentist? What's going on? I need dental help. Special needs development. Where do I go for that? So find these, because this could be beneficial to you. If you had stuff like this and you could present this to your families, they'd be like, this is really an amazing program. And I know that your programs like Access may already have this at like your fingertips. And then other resources could be like, if there is a challenging behavior, where do you go? Some of you know others that have done youth mental health first aid. So is there a website? Is there an article? Is there a book that you can refer to your young, to your families? Like my grandchildren are 3, and so they're in that hitting stage, and it's like, well, what, how do you provide a book for that? Child youth development, what is something that you can provide for that? Diversity and inclusion, funding, sustainability, program management, quality programming. These are resources for you as well. So that is what we're looking for the resources part of things. Going back to our dashboard, we're almost through. Now we're going to the application of most standards of quality. So just like I said with the Code of Ethics, it is going to be essential that you download these essential documents, because now we're going to the most standards. So if you go to the Michigan Out of School Time Standards of Quality 4th edition and you download that, you can either do a hard copy of it or you can split your screen. It's your choice. You're going to need that with you in your hand. And I'm going to show you an example again from the person that has given me their approval to show their information. The application of most standards of quality, looking at the 5 out of the 7 critical components, okay? So as you know, the Michigan Out of School Time Standards of Quality were adopted in Michigan in 2013, maybe earlier than 2013. I think they were actually adopted in like 2007 and then redone in 2013 and then done again in 2020. And so these are the standards that say this is what a high quality program should look like. If you want a high quality after school time program, out of school time program, look at the Michigan Out of School Time Standards of Quality. Okay. And so the document, once again, is provided in your essential documents and are divided into 7 critical components for comprehensive programs. You have health and physical safety, positive climate and emotional safety, program staffing, program environment, program and activities, administration, and single purpose programs. So in the spaces below, you're just going to look at 5 of the 7 critical components. You're going to choose a standard and an indicator. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. When you choose a standard, and an indicator from the list of competencies, critical components, and give a specific example of how you would implement that standard and quality indicator in a high quality program implementation. So the critical component for this one is health and physical safety. Okay. Enter the standard letter, enter the quality indicator number you are going to address, and then answer how would I implement this standard in a high quality program. I'm going to scroll through so you'll see the critical components that they want you guys to address. But remember, they're asking for two things: for you to enter the standard letter and the quality indicator, which is a number. So you're going to have a letter and a number that you're going to address. And then you're going to write to how you're going to implement that into a high quality program. Okay, so I'm going to give you and show you guys an example. Let's see, let's go here, and I'm going to go to the person who's allowed me to look at their information, and we are going to go to, it was the most application of most standards of quality. All right. So looking at their first critical component, we see the health and physical safety area. The person chose the letter and they chose the number. So they chose A1. A reads, the safety and security of all children and youth are protected. 1. Children and youth are supervised at all times, including during arrival, transitions, and departure. And then remember, you had to write to it. You had to write how you were going to implement that into a high quality program and what it looks like. Well, this is what the person wrote. Before the school year starts, have all staff participate in training that helps identify best practices for building community, child youth assessment, and observation. Require all staff to be engaged in greeting, monitoring, and welcoming students as they enter the club programming area, conducting open-ended questions, listening, and monitoring during club activities, as well as engaging, escorting, and monitoring students during lunch breaks, restroom breaks, transitions, and parent pickups. In this area, it is important to maintain an adequate ratio with a minimum of 2 staff members in case of changes in club activities, emergencies, etc. Though it does not specifically identify it in the standards under this area, listening to student conversations is helpful to ensure safety. Finally, conduct weekly staff meetings showing staff how A1 can be supported by and work in conjunction with other areas of the most standards of quality, such as Section 2, Positive Climate and Emotional Safety, Standard A, Quality Indicator 1. Now, you may not have to mention at the bottom here that how it feeds into your next content area. That was a choice. But to detail and to give specifics of how this will be implemented, your choice of indicator area is essential. Okay. You're doing that for the critical components. How you're going to implement them. You're going to do that for the managing staff section as well. And then for the continuous improvement section as well. I'm going to scroll through this so you guys will get a good example. Please keep in mind that we will go over these thoroughly in our cohort. We have just begun, and we are still on target, and we are still on time. No one is left behind. Not even my access folks. We are still on target. So be encouraged. We're going to get through this. Just scrolling through, giving you guys a chance to capture some of this information and examples. And even in this, if you ever need, once again, a one-on-one, a phone call, please do not fail to reach out to me. I will provide you with the email address and my phone number prior to ending this on today. We're moving on. Back to dashboard. So that was the application of most standards of quality. Once again, I recommend that you download that document and that you either print it off, that you either do a split screen after you've downloaded it and work with it right in your face, right in your hand, in your possession, right? The next thing is the demonstration of core knowledge, skills, and competencies. How are you going to demonstrate your knowledge of these competencies in your program? So as I said before, the National After School Association, NAA, Core Knowledge, Skills, and Competencies, CKSC, they outline what professionals who work with and on behalf of youth need to know, show, and grow to positively impact young people and the field. The NAA CKSCs are organized into 10 content areas. You guys are familiar with those now since you've been uploading your training documentation. The Michigan Self-Assessment Checklist found in the Essential Documents section uses the identified category of the NAA CKESCs as the foundation for the MyYDA credential. So you will list the item and write a detailed example. There's that word detailed again. You will list the item and write a detailed example of how you will demonstrate this in your work with children and youth. For example, to give you a good example here, you may choose content area 1B, which reads this way. I recognize that all children and youth have individual needs, temperaments, characteristics, abilities, and develop at an individual rate. They go on to speak in their own words what that means. When I design my lesson plans, I take this knowledge into account as I plan for the individual children in my group. Johnny may need more time. Susie may need the activity to be more challenging, and Jamal may need an alternative activity he can do on his own. So looking at these 10 areas, starting with 1. I'm not going to do all, but just a couple. Number 1, we know this as being child youth growth and development. Write the competency statement and your detailed implementation example here. The item letter is going to be 1B. The item letter is going to be example 1B, or it's going to look like this, the number and the letter. That's the item letter there. Write the competency statement and your detailed implementation example here. That's going to look like this. I recognize that all. Okay, it's going to start with that. And then that would be the competency statement that ends with at an individual rate. The detailed implementation begins here. When I design my lesson plans, all of that, all the way down to he can do on his own. That's the example. Okay, that's the example. That is what they're looking for. Doesn't have to be all that extensive, but that is what they're looking for each section. The document that you need to download and work with you in conjunction with this is going to be found on your dashboard under Essential Documents, and it's going to be the National After School Association Core Knowledge, Skills, and Competencies, NAA CKSC. It is right above the printable activity plan form, and right up under the National After School Association Code of Ethics. You download that form, and that is where you will find all that information. But remember, you do need to speak to it. Doesn't have to be extensive, but you do need to speak to it. Once that is done, that is when all of these should now be green under credentials. You take a screenshot if you're a licensed facility, send it to myself so I can send it to the right person at Teach. Or if you can find the Teach email on their website that I provided, send it there. If not, I'm willing to assist. Once that payment is made, a test drops down. You have one chance to do it with no charge, another chance to do it at no charge. You can take it another time after that at $30. Upload your driver's license, your bloodborne pathogen training, your CPR first aid training documentation, and then you submit this thing. You will be assigned a reviewer and an external assessor. That assessor, that person's job will be to contact you, get on your schedule, get your location, see if they need to be, if there's anything as far as safety, getting into your building or location. You could talk about the lesson plan that day if you choose to. Please know that you will need to have evidence of your transcripts, evidence of whatever you use for training documentation there for that assessor, because they're going to ask to see it. It could be through binder, or you could keep it electronically on your desktop, whatever works for you. They will interview you about 10 minutes after, so look for that as well. So it's 45. So it's a total of an hour, honestly. 45 minutes of them to review you, maybe another 15 minutes for them to 45 minutes to observe you, and then 15 minutes to interview you. And that is where they will ask you to see documentation and things like that, and just talk to you. And then that information comes back. The assessor would have to put all their notes into the system, and then it goes back to a reviewer to do all that again. And then you would hear if you've been awarded, or that you will be awarded your credential. And the credential is good for 3 years. It is $50 to renew it, but the process is nowhere near as extensive as the first time. So I want to encourage you. I want you to know that we are here for you, MDE, MyLeap, in partnership with MDE and the Michigan After School Partnership, to get you guys through this. I hope that some of this has been helpful. It's just a matter of you being able to slow it down, pause it, take a look at it, get an idea. If you are still with the training documentation portion of things, take your time. You haven't even submitted yet. Can you bounce around? You most definitely can on this portal. This is your dashboard. You can bounce around as much as you want on here until you see that progress bar moving and you see things happening and you get it to green. This is about you, and this is about us offering you that assistance. So this is at no stress to you, and we look forward to helping you guys through this to the end. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.